In Puerto Rico, social organizations protest against the privatization of electric powers, which have an impact on the high cost of living. Indigenous movements in Panama resume protest actions to demand land title while the single dialogue table is underway. Sri Lanka's Parliament voted by secret ballot for a new president to lead countries out of the deep political, economic, and humanitarian crisis that has left tensions in the island nation. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Puerto Rico, social organizations protest against the privatization of electric power, denouncing concern of increase. Protesters called by the Alliance of Active reiterate and mobilize employees to the Electric Power Authority are asking Governor Pierluisi to stipulate the approval of a new electric debt judgment plan. Among the conditions are no increase in electricity rates for the payment of debt, a cut of more than 75% in the bond debt, as well as no cuts of pensions and no tax on the sun or the renewable energy. The indigenous movements in Panama began a national strike to demand the government to title in their lands, a call that comes in the middle of the process of the talks in the single dialogue table. The protesters demand an end to evictions by settlers and recognition of the development of the Marungandid and Embera del Alto Bayano territories recognized by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. These protests have the support of 12 Congresses and the authorities of 7 Native peoples. These protesters are taking place at a time when the leaders of popular and organizations are advancing in the unified dialogue table.
The National Coordinator of the Indigenous Peoples, which brings together 7 indigenous peoples, 12 structures are calling this afternoon to announce the national strike in the territories at national level. This is because the coordinator has been calling the government to dialogue to present the land problems that we have in the comarcas. However, they have paid little attention. Above all, the directors who are responsible for this solution have not shown up. They have always sent secretaries or low-level people who do not make the decisions.
The Haitian opposition called on the various sectors to reach an agreement to establish a transition of rupture to address the social crisis faced by the country. Economist Fritz Yen, elected by the signatories of the Montana Agreement to lead an interim executive, made an appeal to make the organization of elections viable and to take measures to put an end to the violence resulting from the war between gangs for the control of City Soledad in the capital. Other social sectors encourage an inclusive dialogue to discuss issues such as security, fight against corruption, and election monitoring. In this context, the United Nations demanded that the armed groups cease fire and respect the rights to life of the population. On Wednesday, the Bloc of Resistance and People's Rebellion of El Salvador will present a petition for the abolition of the exception regime to the Legislative Assembly. The measures comes after the Salvadorian Congress approved during its plenary session the 4th extension that suspends several constitutional rights for the Salvadorian population, such as the right to defense. Meanwhile, leaders of the Popular Resistance Bloc assured that with these extensions of fundamental rights recognized by the country's constitution, such as the right to life and the presumption of innocence, are violated. On the other hand, government representatives state that the emergency regime guarantees peace in the country. This Wednesday, the Congress of Colombia installed the new legislative cycle for the 2022-2026 term. The new Congress of Colombia, with a majority of the historical PAD coalition in both chambers, will be installed this Wednesday on an official ceremony in the elliptical hall headed by the President Iván Duque on a date that coincides with the celebration of the 212th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. 108 senators and 187 representatives to the chambers will be installed for this period, while around 181 legislators will take part in the Congress for the first time after the victory of the historic path on March 13. According to the new president of the Congress, Roy Barreras, the priorities for this new legislative stage are the tax reform, as well as the revision of the general budget for the nation for 2023. On the occasion of the installation of Parliament in Colombia, the native peoples carried out acts and ceremonies to highlight their participation in the legislature for the next 4 years. The new Congress of the country, with a majority of the historical PAD coalition in both chambers, is installed this Wednesday in an official ceremony headed by the outgoing President Iván Duque on a date coinciding with the celebration of the 212th anniversary of the country's independence. The communities and native people will perform a ritual of position and reception of the new representatives, both of the Indigenous Congress chambers and those belonging to the historical path. Indeed, it is a spiritual and political position of the Congress members of the native communities and of the alternative bench from the ancestry and wisdom of the peoples of Colombia, in which they set their hopes for a change for a historically forgotten sons. In Brazil, the former president and pre-candidate for the presidency in the October elections for the Workers' Party, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, visited his hometown while fulfilling political commitments. Our correspondent Brian Mears has the details.
I'm standing in the hometown of former Brazilian President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, Guaranunes. He was born here. He lived the first 7 years of his life in the rural zone. Lula addressed a large crowd today as part of a 3-city tour that's taking place today and tomorrow in his home state of Pernambuco. Two of the main themes he touched upon were the importance of Brazil establishing its sovereignty, which he feels has been lost since far-right President Jair Bolsonaro took office and began privatizing off national assets like the electrical grid and making deals with the U.S. military to join Southcom. Secondly, he talked about the importance of eliminating hunger. It's not fair to have a country like Brazil today, he says, where some people eat 10 meals a day and others go 10 days without eating a piece of bread. This is a theme that's touched his entire political career, but it really hit home this morning before he went to the arena when he visited his childhood home, which has been rebuilt by some of his cousins who still live in the area. A simple clay shack that had no running water and no electricity.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The United States House of Representatives overwhelmingly approved legislation to protect same-sex and interracial marriages. This move occurred and concerned that the Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe versus Wade abortion access could jeopardize other rights criticized by many conservative Americans. The vote was 267 over 157, with dozens of Republicans joining Democrats for passage. With a lopsided debate, Democrats urged argued intensely in favor of ensuring marriage equality in a federal law, while Republicans openly rejected gay marriage. They purported the bill as unnecessary and other issues faces the nation. While the Respect for Marriage Act is expected to pass the House with a Democratic majority, it is almost certain to stall in the evenly split Senate, where the most Republicans will likely join a filibuster to block it.
So with these votes, Congress is really trying to reassert its role, its legislative branch role, in sort of a confrontation with the Supreme Court. Later this week, there'll be a vote on ensuring access to contraceptive services. Again, this follows votes last week to ensure access to abortion services. These are ways that Congress is trying to pass bills and put in legislation to really sort of stand up and push back against what the court has already done with the Roe versus Wade ruling, and what others worry may still come if the court takes further action on some of these other issues.
In the U.S., at least 17 Democrat legislators have been arrested, among them Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar, both members of the House of Representatives, from protesting in favor of abortion in front of the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. According to Capitol authorities, 35 arrests were made, including that of the 17 members of Congress. They are charged for allegedly blocking access roads to the Supreme Court while demonstrating in favor of abortion. In addition, the Ocasio-Cortez and Omar, the Democratic Congresswoman Cribage, Bernice Escobar, Jackie Spear, Barbara Lee, Ayanna Presley and Caroline Meloni were arrested. Meloni said that it is not possible to claim that there is democracy in the United States if women cannot have control of their own bodies and decisions about their own health. The European Union proposed that a blackout its natural gas consumption by 15% over the next 8 months in a plan that will affect all household power producers and industry. The goal is endemic in regulation accompanying demand reduction guidelines for governments amid growing concern that Russia will cut gas exports to the region after being hit with sanctions following its special military operation in Ukraine. The measure put forward by the European Commission includes a mandatory trigger if the situation worsens and voluntary curbs are insufficient. Under its Safe Gas for Safe Winter plan, the Commission recommended steps that includes reducing heating and cooling, switching them to other market-based measures. The United Kingdom's Consumer Prices Index rose by 9.4% in the 12 months to June, after the high in rising prices of motor fuels and food. In a monthly basis, the country's CPI rose by 0.8% in June 2022, compared with a rise of 0.5% in June 2021, according to the Office for National Statistics. The increase in annual inflation was driven by rising fuels and food prices, and those were slightly offset by the falling second-hand car prices. The annual increase for transport was 15.2% in June 2022, compared with minus 1.5% in June 2020 during the first COVID-19 lockdown. Food and non-alcoholic beverage prices have risen by 9.8% in the year to June 2022, the highest rate since March 2009. The final two candidates to become a UK Prime Minister that were elected on Wednesday, with Foreign Secretary Liz Truss battling it out with French Rishi Sunak. Sunak won the fifth and final voting round of 30 MPs with 1,137 votes, while second place Truss won the support of 113 MPs. Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt was knocked out, authorized after coming in third with 105 votes. The 42-year-old British Indian former Chancellor, who has stopped every vote round so far, added 19 votes to his Tuesday tally to 118 and comfortably crossed to 120 MPs mark, seen as the threshold to confirm a place in the final showdown. Sunak and Truss are now set up for their first head-off clash in live televised debate. Earlier, the outgoing Prime Minister Johnson used his last Prime Minister's questions in the House of Commons to bid farewells to the top job. We have more news coming up after this final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. Sri Lanka's parliament voted by secret ballot on Wednesday for a new president to lead the country out of the deep political, economic and humanitarian crisis that had left tensions in the island nation. Prime Minister and acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who has been the face of the government's only an economic crisis, is facing a heavy challenge. Dulas Alatmakpuna, a former government minister, was nominated by the faction of the ruling coalition, and ethnic minority parties also said they'll support him. His opponent in the voting was Marxist Party leader Anura Disagye. The winner will severe the remainder for the electoral pass term that end in 2024. After a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Tehran, Iran President Ibrahim Raisi said the United States forces must exit Syria and its government must have sovereignty over all parts of that country.
The Syrian government must have sovereignty over all parts of that country. Therefore, the presence of the United States in the east of the Euphrates is unjustified, no matter the excuses. They must exit that region.
The government of China rejected the visit of Vice President of the European Parliament, Nicolas Verde, to Taiwan and called for a halt to any form of official exchange with the island. At a press conference, a Foreign Minister spokesman, Wang Wenbin, declared that the meeting of the European delegate with Taiwan President Xi Jinping contributes to the deterioration of relations between Beijing and Europe, seriously violating the principle of one China, encouraging the island's pro-independence rebel forces. The official also stressed that the West must respect Beijing's sovereignty over the island and demand that European nations not interfere in the internal affairs of the Asian Union. People in Germany had the hottest day this year as the highest temperature hit 40 degrees Celsius in some parts of the country. According to data related by the country's meteorological authorities, on Wednesday, most regions of the country were scorched by a temperature of or above 35 degrees Celsius in the southwestern and western part of the country. Temperatures soared to 40 degrees Celsius. It was the second time that heat wave affected Germany since the mid-June. As the situation worsens, experts warn about the risk of heat wave triggered wildfires. As a result of the government authorities upgraded to the wildfire alert to the highest level of most of its forests. A massive wildfire broke out in the region of Pentelit in northern Athens on Wednesday, forcing hundreds to evacuate and leaving 3 injured. Local media reported the fire broke out after sunset and then spread to northeastern suburb of Athens. Of the 3 people injured in the fire, 2 of them suffered burns and 1 suffered breathing difficulties due to the smoke inhalation. They were all taken to hospital for treatment. More than 600 people have been evacuated so far, as many homes have been destroyed and roads closed. With that story, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I'm from the South. I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.